Welcome back to the Bond Report. My name is Chris, aka the Bearded Blofeld. Today we are talking about, and you probably already know if you saw the thumbnail, 007 Road to a Million Season 2. That's right. So this time around, we've had a whole new format, similar style show, but a lot more to talk about. In this video, I've got some amazing guests. Now keep in mind, if you're watching this and you haven't seen the show, the first half of this video is going to be for you. It is going to be spoiler free. When we get to the section where spoilers are going to happen, I will let you know so that you can either choose to pause and come back after you've seen the show or continue on. Stick around to the end because I'm going to have a special guest, Jen from Season 1, the winner of 007 Road to a Million, is going to stop in and I'm going to ask her a couple questions and we're going to talk about what she thought about some of the key differences from her season versus this one. But without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in my guest of friends. Guys, welcome.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Cheers.
Hello, everyone.
So some of you may recognize a few of these friendly faces from the Bond community, and especially if you watch my channel, a few of them have been some regulars at this point. To start off, we have, of course, Christopher Morales, that one Bond guy.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Excited to jump in and talk about this.
I know, right? And then today we have newcomer. Now, Handa, you've been on the show a few times, but we've got Handa from the Bond Girl Project. Welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to discuss this new season.
Wonderful. And then, of course, we've got Benjamin from the Bond Bulletin.
Hello. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, longtime veteran of the Bond community. And we're going to talk about a few things he has planned, too. I'm going to sneak some of that conversation in here. And then, of course, Elan Ovadia with Idiot Bond Fan. Welcome back, my friend.
What's going on, guys? I am really looking forward to this one.
So to be fair, this is going to be a fun conversation, okay? We're all going to chit chat. We're going to have some different opinions. We are not paid. This is not sponsored. We can say whatever we want. Keeping that in mind, we're also not here to just tear people down and destroy people and be mean about it. Elon might. We'll see. Did you find the show enjoyable this season? And chime in, anybody. This is just kind of a blanketed question I want to ask.
I'll say yes. And it's funny because I actually watched the show with my mother, who we did watch season 1 together. However, since it's almost already been 2 years from now ago when that happened, even she's a Bond fan. She's the one who got me into Bond, of course, but she's not out here having an Instagram account called That One Bond Mom or anything like that. But she loves Bond and she's about it. But she was genuinely invested in the show. She really connected to a lot of the contestants. Some of them she found entertaining, some of them she found annoying, some of them she actually loved the story. And up until the end, she was on the edge of her seat, which was really interesting to see somebody who's not as much as a diehard Bond fan as I am, who's kind of nitpicking everything from this season and also enjoying all the Easter eggs and whatnot. But to see somebody else from a different perspective be on the edge of the seat, I think is a testament to what the show in season 2 brought this time around.
Yeah, good response, Chris. Guys, what are we thinking? It kind of overall, was it a positive experience? Was it a negative experience?
Well, before Elon takes it somewhere, it's probably not a good place. I was very critical of season 1. Regulars to my channel will know that. I tore this show apart and got some heat from Jen and her dad when I was in London for tearing down the show, and his daughter and I said it was not like that. I just complained about the concept of the show, which I did not like. Now, did I like season 2? I went into watching it with a blank slate. I thought, okay, I'm watching a game show that has a 007 theme. And I must say, I enjoyed it. It was okay.
Good.
It was really okay. Nothing more, nothing less.
All right, Handa, jump in before Elon takes over. We know it's going to happen.
I do love these type of reality shows, those competition type of shows, and I loved it. I enjoyed it very much. I like the competition. I like to know more about the participants, and I really had a fun time. And especially, to try to capture those Easter eggs that were not that subtle anymore, right? As I heard, I haven't seen season one, but I noticed very important references to the Bond movie. So it was really fun. It was really fun. I loved it.
You'll have to go check out season one for a comparison when you get time. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by what you find in one aspect, and you'll know it when you find it. So, all right, Elan, what do you got, buddy?
Well, I've been waiting all week to talk about this. I am in the camp where I actually enjoyed season one more than season two. And I may be in the minority there, but I never actually thought I'd say those words out loud because I despise season one. So saying that season one is better than season two makes me feel that season two is a flaming pile of dog poo. I thought it was not very good. I don't blame the contestants per se. I don't feel the producers, the editors, the people who actually put the show together did a really good job telling the story of these characters, these people. I didn't feel as much empathy for them or as drawn to them as I did as some of the contestants in season one. I don't feel like I got as much of their backstory as I would have liked to, which would have made me care about them more. And ultimately, for me, that was a fail because I wasn't emotionally invested in what they were doing. If I wasn't emotionally invested in them, it was hard to be in the missions.
That is a little shocking, though, that season one pleased you more than season two, considering everything. But we're gonna get into this. All right.
I'm just scraping the surface with that statement. So,
Oh, hold on. Since you asked us all this, Chris, what were your thoughts about this in comparison from season one?
Well, thank you. So, I would say this was a step up in several directions. I feel like it was ultimately more polished. I feel like the ideas were fleshed out more. The production value was more. And I enjoyed it. There are aspects I did not enjoy, and we're going to get into that. But I think as a whole, like if I gave season one, let's say I gave season one a 5 out of 10, I would probably give season two like a 7. So that's kind of where I sit with it. It's still not great. There's plenty of room for improvement. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and get directly into the questions, guys. And thank you, Chris, for asking. Appreciate that. But Ben, I'm gonna start with you, sir. When it comes to this show, Bond is all about glamour, danger. But in Road to a Million, contestants are just regular people. Did this mix of ordinary meets extraordinary make the show more relatable or more jarring for the viewer?
Well, first of all, what I immediately saw in episode one was that the Bond touch was significantly increased. So you had this interrogation situation with actor Nicholas Woodson, who of course played in Skyfall, and he was in the same situation with Daniel Craig's Bond. And I thought, okay, I'm going to see more of what I complained season one did not have. And I was instantly rewarded. But after that, you have to go into the psychological aspect, why we like to watch people compete in a game show and why we like to watch them win or lose. That is the essential element of all of this. And what Road to a Million does, it simulates a high stakes game for us without any personal risk because we're at home and we're watching it from the safety of our couch. But our brains still react as if we were playing the game and we're asking ourselves, would I do that? Or is that a bit too much for me? For example, I just said it in a podcast today, I wouldn't bungee jump. I wouldn't. You could give me £1 million. I wouldn't bungee jump for
Mm.
several reasons. But these people do, and as we established, they are ordinary people, and we like to see ordinary people, just like you and me. We like to watch them compete also against each other. There were a lot of situations in the show where it was not just team by team. It felt more like a coherent whole, all of it together. And as you said, Chris, it increased significantly in production value. I mean, season one was already very cinematic. It was a really cinematic feel. But now, with you had the South China Sea, you had Pangna Bay, you had the music of the man with the golden gun, then you have Sölden in Austria, 007 Elements, all these places where you might have been or you want to go. Vienna was there as well, and I've been to these places, and that was a joy for me to see them there. And then at some point they give them an Aston Martin drive as a reward. I mean, come on. It's if we would be that, we would be smiling like little kids.
Of course.
So that is the psychological thrill that we experience. And the next thing is the emotional connection to these characters. And I felt quite strongly about the contestants now, not so much about the ones in season one. I mean, the same applied, the psychological thrill, but I felt the concept of season one was totally different than season two. It
Yeah.
was totally different. Season two is much more spy stuff, not just answering questions or opening a locked box or something. I felt it was much more spy. Yeah, some episodes were quite intense. I noted down some characters that I'm not fond of and that really made me not watch the next episode because I found that person so irritating, and I thought I cannot be in a room with that person for 5 minutes. So why do I voluntarily watch that?
Well, that's a great answer, first off. And I think you nailed it on the head. And when it comes to the characters, we're going to dive into those in a little bit. So hold on to that information. But guys, what do you think? Like, was it, the ordinary meets extraordinary? Was that a relatable aspect? Was it jarring for the viewer? Did it feel forced?
For me, it was natural. I felt it was natural.
I just wanted to be in it myself, and there were so many moments watching the show. It's like, come on, guys, it's so much easier. All you had to do is A, B, C, and D, and you have the challenge already done. But I guess it adds a sense of um, drama or realism for somebody who may not be used to being put in situations as intense or as physical as that, and seeing them kind of struggle a little bit while other people that are a little bit more physical or like to do those challenges, those puzzles, those brain games, would easily pick them up super easy. So I mean, like Ben said, psychologically, it's like you're invested in the show as well, and you can see you put yourself in that situation. And I think season two allows a lot more opportunity for the viewers to see and have put themselves in the show, which I think is way better than just sitting back and kind of just observing, which I feel like season one was a little bit more of. Season two, you actually kind of had to think. You actually kind of had to be like, huh, okay, I wonder how I would do this. And I mean, I think it was a bit more immersive, definitely, than season one. So I'd say the extraordinary and ordinary would definitely works for both sides of the coin here. But yeah, again, there's some pluses and minuses for sure.
Yeah,
No?
in my case, I watched it maybe thinking that they were trying, to like pursue a double O status, and then each mission would be like some sort of tests if they were able to communicate well or work as a team, or working with opponents, like James Bond and Triple X, for example, And I thought that each challenge was actually aiming to develop and train some sort of skills, whether physical, whether mentally. And the difference between the extraordinary and the ordinary is that the extraordinary people, they're just very well trained and capable, So James Bond is not a superhero. He's just very good at everything he does. So I thought about it, in a way that they were growing each episode, and the people that would remain in the competition, they were just growing their abilities, and becoming more extraordinary, just like James Bond, just like we saw in Casino Royale, and all James Bond's, arc. Uh, from Casino Royale to No Time to Die, for example. So that's how I thought, when I was watching it.
Great answer.
Yeah, that's a solid
Mm-hmm.
answer. Elan?
I didn't feel like the stakes were high enough, and I'll explain what I mean by that. I didn't feel that sense of danger or, like if I was in that situation, like trepidation. For me, I don't watch shows like Amazing Race or Survivor or any of those kind of shows. So, for me, like I don't love the way this is done, where I watch the two people climb the Carver Media Tower, and then I see the next people do it 5 minutes later. Like for me, I don't like that editing style. I feel like I'm watching one group do it and then another group do it, as opposed to watching things happening simultaneously. And for me, I understand they have to elongate these episodes, they have to draw them out. I just feel like I would be more invested and excited if there were things and there were a couple episodes where they were doing stuff at the exact same time. But there were points where I just felt like, okay, well, that group goes and then they finish and then the next group goes. And for me, that just really pulled me out of it entirely, that it just kind of turned it into like a snooze fest. Sorry.
No, and you're making a good point. And that was one of the key features that the director from season 1, Jamie Gould, said they were going to change the format, because the last season, there was a lot of bouncing around.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see these two contestants do this thing, and they're going to get up to a point. It's going to be like, oh my God, are they going to make it? Drop and insert team 2. And now they're doing a different challenge. And then they're going to get to that same kind of extreme moment and then drop again. And here's team 3 doing a different challenge or a different part of the first challenge. And so the constant bouncing around for season 1 was one of the biggest gripes that the studio had. And they listened to that and they made that change. I think we're all making some good points here, but I think, Elan, to add to what you said, they didn't nail it still. Like there's, they're getting closer. They've gotten better, but it's the intensity, like you said, I would have appreciated if it would have been like, okay, we see like maybe 1 or 2 people, we'll use the Carver Media Tower for the example. They find the building, they go to the ground floor and search. And then we see the next 2 teams, and now they're up in the office and they're searching the office. And we see the next 2 teams, and they find the desk and the cool thing that happens with the desk. And then we see, when we just circle back to the first 2 teams, and now they're up on the roof. So I think it goes with what you were saying, is they just had to stretch this out. And maybe the challenges, as thoughtful as they were this year in comparison to season 1, still just aren't where they need to be.
Well said.
Thank you. Mr. Morales, you are next. So this season gave us a very diverse mix of teams: father, son, married couples, siblings, best friends. Was there a team dynamic that really stood out? And how did their relationship add to the drama, or in some cases, the comedy of the show?
Oh man, the one thing I will say about this season, despite not knowing too much about everybody, like personally, which like Elon said, I enjoy because it allows you to get more sympathetic towards a certain group, each team. I wish there was a bit more like background story on them as well. However, I do think there's a lot more memorable competitors this time around. I mean, I can think back really quickly and think about a couple groups faster in season 2 that I can go back to season 1, outside of the winner, Jen and
Beth.
This season provided a vast array of personalities, whether you had like the father-son team, which I really enjoyed because you got to see them work together. And what I really appreciate with that is that they did highlight a little bit of the personal side of that relationship. The father with his injury to his eye, and then the son with the autism, and how it was really, this show was a pivotal moment for the son kind of breaking out of his shell and seeing the relationship dynamic between the father, promoting and being proud of his son was really, really cool to see and really inspiring. and then adding a little bit to the drama, the sisters, you know, seeing them kind of have an argument with each other, which caused them time on different, which you made you want to pull your hair out of your head, you know, at some points, to just the sheer brotherhood of the Naughty and Ricky. You know, just seeing that was really cool as well. I mean, there's all these different aspects that you see, but the main theme I think with every group, if you notice, is that it's all, and I think Handa said it, it's about growth, right? Each group, if whether they won a challenge or they lost the challenge, grew from that. But yeah, again, so many different personalities, some of which added to the entertainment. Some of them really kind of made you squirm in your seat a little bit. But I'll let the viewers go and watch if they haven't watched it already. Go and make an opinion for themselves. But if you've already watched it, you guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Good answer. Good answer. No, and I think I love this growth element because one thing I think, and Handa, chime in here if you have a thought on this. What I liked was through this season, especially too, we get to know the contestants bit by bit rather than hearing this whole drawn out backstory of each like taking an entire episode to tell everybody's backstory. Each episode, you learn a little bit more about each one of them or about one team or the other team. And they really honed in on that personal connection that that group is going to have with the audience. Hannah, what do you think on that?
Yes, I agree, and I really like the dynamics between the participants. So, for example, you would have like married couples, and then sisters, and then brothers. So, and especially how they would react under pressure, right? Because, for example, you'd see a married couple that on a specific challenge that was about communication, which was the one in the towers, they would just, freak out. And they were saying, okay, you cannot interrupt me, and that's what happens in real life, right? When things start to get stressed a little bit, that's how you react. Imagine under pressure in a tower, 40 feet height. Sorry, 40 floors height. So it was very impressive to see, the friction, the partnership as well, because sometimes one person was in trouble and then the partner would just, save the day, reacting in a general, no? So I really liked it. I like the dynamics. I like they picked diverse pairs. It was really fun to watch them all. Yeah.
A question: were these pairs? I know season one, Barbara handpicked the pairs for season one. Do we know if these guys in the second season were picked from either Barbara or I know Greg Wilson had a part in this as well. Do we know how they were picked?
I personally do not know if Greg or Barbara or Michael had anything to do with the casting this season.
Okay.
So, guys, has anyone else heard anything on that?
I haven't seen the producing credits or, I didn't think to check. It's funny you say that. I was actually thinking about that before we got on this call. I'm like, who can we attribute the good things and the bad things to? But this was filmed more than a year ago. So this was way before creative control changed. So I can't see how they wouldn't have their fingerprints on this to some degree. It's just a question of how much.
Yeah. I think Greg, if I recall, I thought I had a conversation with someone, and I think Greg was still involved with this.
He is. He's in the credits. I saw him a couple.
Yeah.
You could feel it though. You could feel it that they still had something to do with it,
Yeah, there was a lot of, there was still some of that old feel to some of these things. Guys, this is going to be the final question before we start getting into spoilers. So after this, I'll let you know. But Handa, every great Bond story has an iconic villain. Brian Cox returned with more dialogue as the controller, paired with his new assistant, Sophia. They brought a whole new energy versus season one. And I know you're going to get to that. You're going to figure that out when you watch season one. But do you feel that their presence created tension for the contestants, or are they simply designed to just be fun for the viewer?
I I think it created a little tension because, when they were like receiving the feedback regarding the challenge, they would say, okay, I'm underwhelmed, you didn't perform well, I was expecting more from you. So I think it created an extra pressure. I haven't seen season one, so I don't know how it happened, but just the fact that you're receiving a feedback from someone, which as I mentioned, right, I thought it was the recruiter, right? The person that would recruit, that would upgrade you to a double O status, for example. And then you receive those type of feedback saying, hey, you didn't go well, you need to improve, you're gonna be eliminated. It's like, of course, it's gonna uh, cause an effect on you. And that's how I thought, I thought it actually created a reaction in a way that it gave more pressure to it.
Nice. Morales, I can already see what you got, bud.
I felt that it was a little cringy, to be honest. There were some moments with the controller and Sophia that were just so it almost felt like they were doing the whole M and tenor or M and an assistant a little bit too hard. I don't know if anybody could see it or agree, but like when the camera did a certain pan over to like Sophia or the controller and they're like looking over and they made some like slide comment or whatever, like I get it. I get they're trying to add personality, but it's like it almost made it a little bit too more like you were jumping from a movie or something that was a little bit, very cinematic to something that's supposed to be set in reality. Again, an interesting way of looking at the controller this time around. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how anybody else feels about Sophia and the controllers at some points, but I felt it was a little cringy at some parts, but that may just be me.
I like that Brian Cox was more front and center. I didn't like in season one that he was just on the phone and it was just, you didn't see him interact with these contestants really I don't think at all in season one in person. Maybe very brief. No, not at all. So the fact that he was actually conversing with them, he's the face of the show. And that's one thing I would say I actually liked better. I mean, I didn't like all of it. I could say some of it was cringeworthy, like Chris said, but the fact that, he's your biggest attribute. He's very well known. He's a phenomenal performer. Why not have him front and center of this show? Because it's like, deal or no deal. Like it's Howie Mandel, he's got a personality. This guy is all personality. So he had the biggest show on television for the last 5 years. He's been in all these big movies. Why not have him front and center? Now, would I have preferred if they had actually brought in Ray Fiennes or somebody from the actual film series to do this? And made it more of you're getting to be recruited as a double O, and these are actually missions to get your double O status. Putting in the Man with the Golden Gun and the Thunderball music. I mean, we get that. The average viewer does not. Okay, we get that. We know what those references are.
We want those.
We want those, but like, at what point is that enough? So for me, like having Brian Cox in this, yes, it was a definite benefit. I didn't like all the banter. I actually liked Sophia. I didn't hate her. I did not hate her because some of those Moneypenny moments are just so cringeworthy. We've had that over and over and over again. So to have like a little bit different of a dynamic between the male and female figures at MI6, I think created something a little bit unique from what we're used to getting.
Great comment, Elan. Great comment. Ben, what do you think?
I did not pay much attention to both of them, actually. I thought the dynamic was really good. Brian Cox is a good actor. She seems to be a good actress. They were not in my way of enjoying the show too much. Cringeworthy, I don't know. It's the British. They're like that. That's what you get. Having it more like a double O show, earning a double O status, well, that would be a radical departure from the show idea because you would have to kill someone. Don't want to see how that plays out on TV. But would I want that? I don't know. I thought it was okay like that, and I thought the controller was very much front and center, as you said. And that's a good thing. I mean, a good show needs a good showmaster. That's groundwork for any show, and we have a lot of those in Germany as well. But we only have a handful of capable showmasters who are funny, entertaining, and likable. And there are some that have now gone into retirement because they were not all of these things anymore, but they were when they were younger. So And Brian Cox is a really good actor. I've seen him in a lot of things, and he has an eerie calmness to him. So that's really good. And Sophia, I don't know what to make of her, but she also seems very calm and reserved. And that's always a little bit unsettling when they are sitting in front of a computer and have immense power.
Yeah. If I'm being 100% honest, I think she is probably my top 3 additions to the show, of the new additions that they added to this show, just because it gives Cox it gives him someone to play off of rather than just being in a room by himself. He's got this banter. And while some of the banter, yes, it was a little corny, a little cringe sometimes, I would rather have corny cringe than dull and boring.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, everybody at home, this is the time. If you have not seen the final 2 episodes of the show, we are going into spoiler territory. So pause the video, go watch that, come back, finish the video later, because we're diving in right now. Elan, kicking it off with you, my friend, for the first spoiler question, because I know you've got notes. Let's talk about eliminations. There were moments this season where teams were self-destructed under pressure, like they were just crumbling. Which breakdown, whether an argument, a panic attack, a poor decision, stood out to you as maybe the best or the worst?
You know, to be honest with you, it's hard for me to answer that, and I'll tell you why. I hated these challenges and these questions so much that I almost forgot like the dynamic during those questions. Like the card game, I thought was the most ridiculous card game ever. You know, I'm just like, guess what's under here? I'm like, that's the challenge. And the killer question. Ooh, the killer question. I I was cringing during season 1 with some of those questions. But like that the fact that they're solving word puzzles here, like that's the challenge to win $250,000 is to decipher like a 6-digit word. Like that's the challenge. So I was so like taken aback by how bad those challenges were, that I kind of don't even remember like the inner workings of how they were playing off each other. The final, can I talk about the finale or I can't talk about it? I can talk about it now.
Yeah, we could talk about we could talk about the
Yeah, they get a box of goodies that are, you know, mementos from their mission together. Oh Lord, that's how you win a $500,000 or not win because they didn't win. They didn't win. And you said Jen is the winner of season 1, but they didn't win the final prize. They didn't win the $1 million. So technically neither season had a winner. And that's kind of like just sucks the air out of the room. Like you watch a show because you want to see somebody win, and nobody won. But I think one thing I did like, and it's a little off topic, but I like that they took home some money. I don't remember if they had accumulated all the money and walked away with it in season 1. I don't recall.
I
But
think
in
they
season
did.
2, they did? Okay. If they did, they didn't make a good enough job of like saying like, here, take your money and now you get something. But you banked it here. So in the end, these guys walk away still with a $500,000. So I guess that was one thing I did like, is the fact that even though they lost that ridiculous challenge of which item's more important to you, they still walked away with some money.
I think that's important, is that we saw the growth, and we've talked about that already. But with the winnings, you're right. They really pointed out, hey, you've banked this. Like you've got this. You're moving on to the next challenge. And if you didn't, okay, you're going home, but you're going home with X.
Well, there was one dynamic I really wanted more of. Um, I wanted to see more of that Indian couple. And they were the one couple that I saw in the trailer. I'm like, oh, these like bumbling old people,
Yeah,
like who are, you know, just clumsy and, you know, probably not going to be good at all these challenges. I'm like, they're adorable. I want to see more of them. And the fact that they were out after one episode, I'm just like, oh, well, there goes the people I was interested in. So for me, that was a little bit of a letdown.
yeah. Even watching the trailer, for that. You saw Shabina and Sid as their names, and you just see like the whole thing where he's like, "Well, you get the scorpions, and I'll make sure you get them to the box." And she's like, "What are you gonna do? Like, how are you helping me?" And I thought it was hilarious because I could see like me and my ex having that same exact debate or argument or conversation, looking at each other like, hold on, I'm doing the tough stuff here. What are you doing? So I liked that. But unfortunately, as soon as I saw that dynamic, I was like, they're not going to work well in these high pressure situations, and they're probably going to fall by the wayside, and they did. So, Ben, what did you think about? Like, did you have a meltdown or a moment in the show that kind of stood out?
Yeah, Kat and Maya, when they were doing the shooting challenge, which was straight out of Skyfall,
Yeah.
obviously. And this was a very big part of that episode. It was episode 5, I think, Mexico, according to my notes. And this was very, very tense. And what we saw was a sibling rivalry with exactly the same body language that we all exhibit when something like that happens. And they were really, really close to throwing themselves off completely, which happens. And this kind of deadlock, it's interesting because in that moment I was not thinking about who breaks this deadlock first. I was thinking about, wow, this is exactly like real life. This is how we behave in real life towards each other, and you can actually learn something from it. Because in that cinematic format, game show as a film, they showed this, and they stood like they're like opposites, and nobody wanted to speak to the other. Psychologically, really, really interesting. What would we have done in that situation?
Right.
Would any of us have broken that deadlock and say, "Hey, come on, it's about a lot of money. Let's just do that." But it's difficult if the other person doesn't want to. So, from that perspective, really, really interesting. I really liked those two. I was not so much into what's Rob and Alex. I wanted to forget his name, but
Rob and Alex.
Yeah.
Alex is a person I cannot spend 5 minutes in a room with. I tell you that. And really, I wanted to turn off a complete episode just because of him.
While you're talking about the Skyfall pistols, I just put in images. You can buy those pistols. They are airsoft pistols available on Amazon. They're CO2 replica pistols. And it's funny because if you go, I mean, it took me 5 seconds to find them. I couldn't believe how available and quickly they were. But when you go back and look at them and you look at the scene when they're shooting them, they've got these supposedly flintlock, amazing pistols. And as soon as they pull the trigger, there's zero recoil. And they added in the audio of the actual gunshot because it's just a clink, click. That's all it is. So that pulled me out when we're talking about moments that stood out. That was a moment because I know firearms. It immediately pulled me out of the experience because I'm like, that's fake. There's no smoke. There's no shot. There's no recoil.
Yeah.
And it that kind of bothered me because had they just said, hey, we're shooting pellet guns or hey, we're shooting BB guns to replicate this, that's fine. But I mean, these are supposed to be like flintlock pirate awesome pistols. I don't think a single one of those people could have handled that real thing. I don't even know that I could have handled that real pistol. It's a powerhouse.
Chris, I think you're making a very good point there because I think that goes to a bigger point, which is I didn't feel, and I think I said this earlier, but now I can elaborate, that the stakes were high enough. And in the sense that I didn't feel like when the guy has the snake at his throat or the scorpions, I'm like, come on, is that really a poisonous snake? You know, is that the shark that's around him? Is that a nurse shark? And then they have somebody with a spear gun right there, like who's not, that's a type of shark that doesn't attack human beings. And little things like that. I mean, maybe the casual viewer wouldn't catch that, but you know, I'm sitting there thinking like, do they really have real scorpions on them? Like that are venomous, that they're going to risk their insurance allowed them to have these type of things with these people in the room. So I don't know. That pulled me out a little bit.
That's very interesting you bring that up, Elan, because I was going to make a point earlier, but now they brought it up. It makes sense. It's kind of overarching everything. This is supposed to be a James Bond themed show. We're all Bond fans. We know what a Bond film consists of. It's huge. It's dangerous. You know, you see this character in the film doing all these unimaginable tasks and missions. You know, then you have ordinary people, yes, going in, but you know they got to sign a waiver, and Amazon is going to have them do something that is somewhat similar, but it'll never be to James Bond's level because it just can't. So that's kind of also too when watching the show, it's like, yeah, they're climbing the edge of or the top of the Carver's Media Tower, but yet you see all the harnesses on them and everything, and you know you see them swimming in the ocean and all these different sharks, like you mentioned. But you know, are they really that close, or is it just a certain shot? So it's kind of hard as a Bond fan going into it and being immersed in it. Well, yeah, this would be so much fun to do personally, but you know, it being a Bond themed show, it's kind of hard to imagine it being as big and bombastic, but as bombastic as a Bond film, because there's as a Bond film happens, there's just so much to it. And again, it's a film, it's a movie. They can go above and beyond and do that. This being a reality show, it almost kind of works against each other a little bit.
But a lot in Bond is fake, so um, it doesn't limit the experience, or it doesn't narrow it down. So Bond wears a harness also all the time, and there are stunt people, and sometimes you clearly see them and you know it's not Bond. So a lot of it is not real. A lot of it is model work or CGI, and you just don't know, but we still enjoy it. So for us, the Bond element is there because we're Bond fans and we recognize these things. For the others, it's just a game show turned into a film. But they focus more on the contestants and on the elements that happen within us, like empathy when somebody struggles, or if I may bring in a German word, I don't know if you know it, it's Schadenfreude, the joy of, or the guilty pleasure in watching others fail.
Shame. We barely got to know each other. I know where you keep your gun.
It happens, and it is in us. And these shows, they want to bring that out in us, and it happens automatically. And ultimately, if somebody wins a challenge, no matter how stupid it is, yeah, solving a riddle with 6 words and just rearranging them and ending up with seasick, in some kind of form, that's what spies do. It happens often, and I did it on my game show on YouTube as well. I had exactly the same puzzle, and it was hard as hell. It was not doable without a hint for the contestants. But our dopamine system lights up when we anticipate a win, even if it's somebody else's. And that's what the show does really, really well. I enjoyed some of these moments.
Ooh, good point, Ben. Good point. Because the show does do some things well.
It does.
And that's where I walk away and I gave the rating that I gave the show, because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, yeah, I can nitpick this. Of course, I'm going to for this conversation, and I can tear it apart. But overall, this wasn't like a 3 of a show. Like, if somebody said, hey, do you want to watch it again? I've never seen it. Okay, it's not going to be as enjoyable for me the second. I'm going to actually call it like the 5th time around, because I rewinded and fast forwarded and rewinded and fast forward back. I rewatched it so many times. But
You watched this 5 times? Oh, jeez.
it's like I would
It's
watch
awful. I feel so bad for you.
well, because I was looking for products. I was looking for locations. I mean, everything. I took notes on everything. What was that moment for you, Handa, when you're watching that stood out as the most memorable?
Well, for me, it would be Mexico City because I lived there. So I lived in Mexico for 4 years. So it was a very sweet spot for me, in which I connected a lot to what was happening there, the Day of the Dead Parade, and, the killer question about the weeping woman, the La Llorona. So, and I know Elan mentioned a little bit about the fact that he didn't like the killer questions, but I mean, in my case, I like them. I like them a lot because I think they were tested for you to show your soft skills, right? So how well you know about another culture, in this case of La Llorona tale, or in the other one from the Muay Thai, the Thailand one, right? The reverse alligator reverse tail movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, and that's what Bond is about, right? It's not only physical. I think it's always soft skills as well. How well cultured you are, um, uh, you know, if how well you manage, pressure, and if you can bluff. For example, in the case of the challenges, for in which they had to open the case with the 50,000 pounds, I believe, right? That the two pairs.
And
Oh,
the
the
Yeah.
Ferris wheel.
So yeah, this kind. I mean, if you think about it, it's a simple challenge. But imagine, losing all that money, and your ability to rely on your instincts and to read people. It's very tough. In real life, it's very tough to read people. Imagine, having all the money at stakes and losing everything. I think they were all under pressure, and I liked the killer questions, even though I also have mixed feelings that they were a little bit simple. But going back to the Mexico City, I really loved the Day of the Dead challenge. It was amazing, and I loved it. I loved it.
No, I think you bring up a good point. That that episode for me, and guys, chime in if you agree or disagree or whatever. But I feel like the Mexico City episode, I think that was episode 6, where they're in Day of the Dead, and they split the teams up, and you see now how it's like, okay, I've got to work with my enemy. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier. This is spy stuff. You have to shake hands with the enemy every once in a while. You've got to lean on your opponent to possibly get a leverage on them every once in a while. And I loved how who they pitted against each other, because it really, I'm so glad that Alex and Dylan did not end up together. Oh my God, that would have been a nightmare. I don't think that would have gone well. I think Alex would have potentially lost his shit. But I think this episode really showcased more critical thinking. And the biggest thing I walked away from is the intensity. The intensity in this episode hit a peak for me, with the music, with the tasks, with the physical, with the mental. You've got them running through the city. You've got the guys back at home base critically going, what's in this room? What am I doing? And they're searching through a shredder and having to put
dumpster diving.
Dumpster diving. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, and I mean,
and that was real too. I could tell that was real.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say this. I love, just like you said, how they work together. But another element to this season is how they worked against each other, which added to the intensity. Because there were opportunities where opponents could vote for those who they wanted to leave the show, which added a whole huge bit of intensity. And then they even had to work with each other, like in the Mexico City. They actually, they didn't hide the fact. I think it was Rob and Alex said, "All right, the elephant in the room is to the father and son team. Yeah, we voted for you guys to be kicked off the show. Sorry, hopefully no hard feelings." And then it's like, now we got to work together. So that was a pretty interesting way of doing things too, that they did not have in season 1. So that was a plus 2 when it came to the intensity and the elements of realness in the show, for sure.
Oh, and guys, for everybody watching at home, those flintlock pistols, those air pistols that from Skyfall, I'm going to put a link down to them in the description if you want to pick one of them up. They're like $200. They're kind of cool, actually. Okay, so for the group, this is just open to anybody. So jump in, guys. Beyond the polished editing of this show, and I feel like there was a lot of polish put on this season versus season 1, especially if we're doing that comparison. We know there were intense moments, from emotional breakdowns to high pressure challenges. If you had a chance to ask the production team one behind the scenes kind of question, what episode would it be, and what would your question be to the production team about what went on behind the scenes?
Well, here's something that I could ask. What is the story behind the Omega watches? Like, how come every single contestant got to wear the watch? I get, obviously, the brand connection, but there was no explanation into how they got the watches. There was no reason. I mean, there was one challenge where they had the turn special Q gadget type watch in order for it to illuminate and unlock a door, but that's the only connection there is in the show for that. throughout the whole every single episode, every single contestant was able to wear it. So was that just because Omega gave them a lot of money, or was that, which I'm assuming it's because of the money, but I would just be curious on those conversations and how that was able to happen.
Weren't they in the list of sponsors anyway? So
Yeah.
that
I would
would
imagine so, yeah.
that would
This is not a cheap show to make.
answer the question. No.
No.
No,
No.
that sponsorship money from Omega. I mean, you got to figure this show is still carried over from the Eon era. So
Right.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
still very much there. Those contracts are in place. I'm sure there was hey, we'll give everybody watches, but we got to have this much screen time. Now, I did like the fact that it did have the unique dial to it and that function. I wish it was a little more than just like go to this door. Like it didn't seem set up well enough, maybe for the reward of what it was. Because I'm sure, and who knows, most likely the watch that we saw, where they turned the dial and you saw the green light up, most likely there was only one or two of those, and everybody else just had the regular No Time to Die watches.
Yeah, well, was that watch given to contestants to wear to do that, or was that didn't they find that in that one room? They found the watch that actually did that.
No, that was their watch. That was that.
Interesting.
And now, correct, I could be wrong here. I didn't pay attention closely, and I can probably go back and find this. But if you go back, especially to like episode 1, where Kat is climbing up into the boat, there's a handful of shots of her wrist, clear as day. I mean, it's not holding onto the rope, and it's very little movement. You would have to probably pause that and zoom in to see if that dial was the same, because the big kicker on the dial was that they put the 7 from 007. I think it was at 1 o'clock, and if you turned it to 12 o'clock, that's when the lights would light up. So if anybody wants to do some homework or some research, and let me know in the comments if that's the case, or is this just regular No Time to Die watches that everybody got. We'll see who's got an eagle eye. But as far as like behind the scenes stuff, I mean, yeah, you're going to have those product push moments. We had a lot. We had Land Rover. Land Rovers were everywhere. I thought it was
Triumph, I think, right?
yeah.
And then Bogner for all the snowy scenes. I noticed that. I had to look really closely. I didn't even notice until they did like a close up on the zipper that had the B.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Bogner was really big in the show. When they were doing the cable, where they had to walk across the cable in the one episode to get to like the end where they had to put the green balls and thing.
Yep.
Both of the girls are completely decked out in Bogner. So there was a lot of brands involved, which makes perfect sense considering this is the Eon era. So I didn't know if there was anything else.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to know, is there going to be a season 3? And I want to know what the viewership numbers are like for this, because this is now fully Amazon. So Amazon would have to produce this show, and you have to figure there's 8 episodes. Each episode's around 30 minutes. I mean, how much did each episode cost? $2 million, $3 million at least. I mean, they're flying them around all over the place. So you have to estimate that this show costs anywhere, between, let's say, $30 and $50 million for 8 episodes, somewhere in there. They probably got a whole bunch of money, like we said, from Omega and all these other partners. But what are the viewership numbers like? What's it going to take for them to keep this as a continuing show? I don't know what the audience numbers are like. I'm curious what the audience numbers were like for last season, because if you remember, they renewed the show before it even aired.
Yeah.
So they already had it like on their schedule. So it was already like, we're doing this no matter how bad the viewership numbers are. So I'm curious, like, what's the plan going forward? Like, if it doesn't achieve a certain level of streams, is it on the chopping block? Or is it automatically on the chopping block because it's now Amazon Creative and they may not want to do that?
Keep in mind too, season 1, that show was actually already completely developed prior to Eon coming on board. questions were already developed. They were already set in place. That's why the questions from season one, and sorry, Hannah, if I'm ruining this for you, really not, I'm trying to hold back on some of these things. But season one's questions had nothing to do with James Bond for that reason, because the show was designed without Bond in mind. And then when the Amazon merger happened, Amazon was like, hey, wait a minute. Let's skin 007 over top of this to turn this TV show idea that we've had in the works into something bigger and reach a established fan base. So you have that to contribute to season one. So it didn't surprise me, because I know Barbara Broccoli, and I have this from a very reliable source, she was not happy with season one at all. Even before it released, she did not like it. She did not like the way they did it. And I think that's why season two was signed on before, because she was like, okay, if we're doing this, we're going to guarantee 2 seasons and we're going to make season two way better. We're going to fix this. So, but as far as your question on season 3 goes, currently it has not been confirmed that season 3 is coming. I would love to see the numbers too. If anybody has a link on where we can find those numbers, please post that down the description. I'm sure we would all love to read that in your comments. So
the only chance of it happening is the little bit of the teaser at the end, the final few seconds of the show, when Brian Cox says, "Will anybody take the main prize?" or whatever he says at the end, alluding to there's still opportunity for somebody to win the £1,000,000. So does that mean in season 3 that we're going to actually finally have a winner, or are they going to even, so at least they left kind of that element too, which as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, they're already thinking about it. Of course, I'm sure they'd love to think about a season 3, but again, the numbers have to prove otherwise for them to move forward. So
Someone's got to win. Like if they do it season 3, someone's got to win. Like enough already. Like otherwise, as the viewer, you're like, really? Come on. And
Season 3, we already know, guys. Come on. It's going to be the James Bond community Road to a Million challenge. You're going to pick like all the James Bond community members. We're all going to be going head to head and seeing everybody get mad, throw things, do flips, carry pillows and stuff through the whole challenge. That's what I would love to see. But, I think it would be a little bit, at that point, it'd be really crazy to see. But I think that would be a lot of fun too, to see actual like Bond fans nerd out in their own missions. But again, numbers have to prove otherwise, right? So I'm hoping for season 3. We shall wait and see, I guess.
You're on my team. You're not going to win shit. I can tell you that.
That's what you want us to think, though. That's what you want us to think.
Wait, you want to run
Well, that's the way I play poker.
the street? No, we've already lost. Let's go have well, that kind of leads me though into my kind of my final question for the group here, guys. When it comes to the ending, I personally felt, and I want to hear you guys chime in on this too, but I personally felt the ending was very flat. Not even because there wasn't a dedicated like winner per se, but I felt it was flat because it just ended with a quip and they got some money and they drove away and
Bond theme. That was it. Yeah.
I was like, there are game shows like this. They bring people back. They bring should there have been another episode? And that's my question here is, should there have been another episode?
Like a reunion?
Yeah, where they bring everybody back.
Yeah.
Talk about the experience, and they have that kind of community with Brian Cox, with Sophia, and how they can stay in character. They can keep Brian Cox and Sophia in character as well. They don't have to break the fourth wall in that sense. But I just felt like the end was just so, and it's done. That's it.
I think it's hard to do that, Chris, with this type of show for a reunion. I watch like really bad TV sometimes, like 90 Day Fiance. I don't know if you've ever watched that show. But
Sorry.
yeah, so, well, these reunion shows, they actually have very good viewership numbers because those are the shows where people curse and the women rip each other's clothes off and the men get into fights. This show is not really built for that. So, I mean, it would be more of a question and answer session. And I guess with the whole mystery of the controller and Sophia, it might pull the mystery out of it if it was like, well, what happened on this episode? And why did you do this? Why did you make this decision? I mean, maybe if they weren't involved, Sophia and the controller, I could see it as a possibility. Yeah, I mean, I don't see them going ahead and doing that. But getting back to your question, yeah, I felt the ending felt very flat.
I agree. I agree. The ending could be more could have more emotion, right? I mean, more thrilled. But regarding the last challenge, the ones in which they had to choose the item that would represent them, I think at least what they were trying to do is to prove the real connection between them. I mean, if you were choosing a partner, right, to face all these challenges, very risky, and then you come to the end of the game, how well you know the person, so it's someone that you are like putting your life, you're trusting your life, so you need to know the other person. I think that's what they try to do, but I agree it was maybe not super well executed because it felt a little flat, like you mentioned.
What do you think about, was there, as far as the final ending where we get the final quip from like Brian Cox and them driving off in the Vantage, the Aston Martin, uh, was this just some candy to kind of help sweeten the loss? Like it wasn't the win, so they're like, well, we got to give them something cool to like walk away with here. Like, do you feel like they could have done something else or something better?
I think, like you said, they tried to lessen the deception with the fact that they didn't win the challenge, and then they put them in the Aston Martin, and it felt like a Bond ending. They were driving away with a lot of money, and that was like the finale. But honestly, I didn't like it very much. But just the fact that they were in an Aston Martin, it was fun, So it's never gonna disappoint. But it could be better. Yeah.
I agree. I think the fact that they were going to drive off in the sunset and Aston Martin was kind of a given. I think that was almost expected that something like that was going to happen at the end. I mean, and I think that's what's hard of trying to bring reality with fantasy, Bond and a reality game, TV game shows. Like, kind of the end of every single Bond film, he rides off in the sunset, right? So it's like for a Bond themed game show with a team that was the last team standing and won the most money. What are they going to have him do? So I almost kind of was expecting something. I didn't. I was actually surprised that they used not the DB5, which was pretty cool. I thought that was awesome. They didn't use the DB5 again at the end, so I appreciate that. But I kind of was expecting that a little bit. But I know you guys were saying it fell flat when they were choosing the items. I actually really enjoyed that part because if you remember, the question was what item best represented the team's most triumphant moment, or when they knew that the moment that solidified the fact that they were a team. And I think it was pretty genuine to see them going through the thought process of each item. And what it did is take us back, right? It kind of was literally a recap of the whole show, item by item. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like for that being a final challenge, it did leave you on the edge of your seat till the very end because you didn't know. I thought for a fact they were gonna choose. I mean, I'm gonna spoil it. Sorry, everybody, but choose the cards. I thought for sure they were gonna choose the cards.
Yeah.
And then when they came out and they said they chose the completely different, wasn't it the flintlock and then the cards? I believe were the final two. I was
Yes.
like, whoa. Season two, just like season one, in my opinion, you could watch this with a non-Bond fan, and I think they would be into it as much as a regular Bond fan would be. I mean, it gives us more little Easter eggs and gets us excited when we see something we enjoy and spark a conversation. But just like my mother, for example, she was on the edge of her seat, and she's not as dedicated a diehard Bond fan as we all are here, but yet she found it enjoyable. And I think that's exactly what Amazon did. I think they did a great job in that aspect, even more so in season two. Like Chris said, I think the rating for myself for season two compared to season one is a lot higher. But I think they did exactly what they wanted and create a show that was attractive to both audience, the diehard Bond fans like we are, and the average viewer that could just be skipping through Amazon video one day and just, oh, this looks interesting, and draw them in with with everything that they did. So I think it's fair for both parties, and yeah, I think they did a good job in that realm.
I
Yep,
agree with that
I agree.
also. And I think the one thing that I thought they were missing, um, I would have actually liked, I look at this from a perspective as a non-Bond fan, even though I'm a obsessive Bond fan. Um, there are a lot of moments in there that if you don't watch Bond movies, you don't know who Skiara is. You don't know
Mm.
what that reference is. You don't know James Bond Island and Thailand and what's the reference to Carver Media Tower. I thought it would have been interesting if they had a little blip at the bottom, like when the music played, like the theme from Thunderball, the theme from Man with the Golden Gun, for those people who were not aware of what that's for, to actually call it out, or for the occasional Bond fan, just to remind them what that reference is. Because if you're not paying attention, some of those references, unless you're a really, really big fan, they'll get lost on an occasional fan, and then of course they'll get lost on people who don't watch this. So I think it would have been interesting and something for them to consider if they're going to keep putting Bond elements in, at least to bring them more to light or to call them out for a more casual viewer.
No, that's a great point.
Fair
Because
point. Mm.
like I said, I was going back and I was like, wait a minute, what did I just miss? I know I just missed something. And I was going back and I was like, oh, that was an Easter egg right there that I didn't spot the first time. Just like Bogner, them wearing the clothing, the brands,
Mm.
little details like that. So they're trying. I think this has been a great conversation. I would like to thank all of you again for being here. I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that better, but not quite nailing it still, for the most part. Um, but for everybody at home watching, if you've gotten this far, thank you for so much. We appreciate you watching this long because I know we're probably well over an hour at this point. I'm going to go ahead and jump in and we're going to talk to Jen, season 1 winner, and we're going to ask her some deep dive questions. So thank you guys for all being here. I'll see you next time. And everybody at home, stick tuned. Here she comes right now. Okay, agents, that's it. We're at a secret undisclosed location, and I've got a very special agent with me today. Please welcome Jen from Road to a Million, Season 1, the winner. Jen, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. It's good to see you. How have you been?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Enjoying some time off at the moment, enjoying the lovely weather we've got. So yeah, really well.
Great. Now I know I wanted to thank you for doing this because I know you've been taking time out of your schedule to come and see me and sit down and do this. I know you're kind of in between some bigger projects right now yourself. You're always very active. How has your summer been though?
I've been working a fair bit over the summer. Up until early August, I was working on a movie set doing medical cover for cast and crew. So that took up quite a lot of my summer up until a couple of weeks ago. So I've just been enjoying some time off since then, some time at home. Time to catch up with people, family, friends, and go out on my motorbike.
Yeah, speaking of motorcycles, guys, if you have not seen the picture, she dropped some motorcycles pictures, and you've been riding now. Which bike do you have again?
Honda, little Honda CB125.
Yes.
I've only done my first level training so far, so I need to do my big bike test, but that'll probably be next year.
And I know you and I have talked about that. Like, I'm really wanting to get my first motorcycle. I keep wanting to get.
Yeah.
I want a scrambler so bad, but I know it's too much to start with. I know it is one of the big 1200s from No Time to Die.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went and sat on one. I can barely touch the ground.
Do it. Just start small.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
So basically, what you're saying is you're a bad influence on me, and you're the girl that my mom warned me about.
Possibly.
I love it. I love it. All right. So we're going to get into the questions here. Today, we're talking about, as I'm sure everybody knows at home, we're going to be talking about season 2 of 007 Road to a Million. Now, Jen, obviously, you won season 1, had your great experience with that. As I'm sure you know, though, fans only get to see the final cut of the show on screen. But I really want to hear from you. How did your experience off camera compare to what we saw in the final edit? And were there any moments of just like pure chaos or like funny challenges with cameramen like right in your face where that didn't make the final show?
Well, our experience was a lot more stressful than what is even seen on the show.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on you. So when I was watching the contestants on this latest season, looking really nervous and anxious, I could completely empathize with how they were feeling, because that's exactly how you feel. You feel so sick with nerves, you're just shaking. It's just, I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and just because there's so much riding on it as well, you just don't want to get things wrong. So yeah, it's very stressful, just the whole experience. Even though it's fun, it's just you put a lot of pressure on yourself. So I think probably the most time of chaos I've already talked about before in previous interviews was when I had a panic attack with a leaking scuba dive mask. That was about 10 feet underwater. That was my worst experience on the show, because the mask was leaking. I couldn't equalize. The water kept coming in. I'd go down. It kept filling up with water. It was awful. And so I just started hyperventilating, had to go back to the surface, try and calm down. So that was really difficult, really difficult.
Oh yeah, I remember our conversation about that, and that's wild. To even relive that, I can imagine that just kind of gets your heart going even a little bit.
Yeah, it was horrible. So watching the contestants do their scuba dive, I was looking at their gear going, oh, they've got amazing scuba gear. I was so jealous because they could talk to each other, they had decent masks. I thought, well, at least that makes it easier, because if you've got gear that's not working, then it makes it so much harder.
Yeah,
But I could empathize with them on the nerves of that challenge, because still it's difficult, really difficult. Yeah. But apart from that, I don't think there was too much times of chaos. I think it was, really well managed.
yeah.
Uh,
Were there any shenanigans with like? Did you have challenges with like the cameramen being like right there on top of you sometimes, or were they not on top of you?
yeah, so when I did the rope climb in Turkey, when I had to commando crawl down
Yeah,
the rope, there
that
was
was so intense. Like I remember watching that.
yeah, really, really close. He was I can't remember, he must have been on, yes, he had a separate rope. No, he must have been on the same rope with me, because he was literally next to me at some points. So yeah, the camera gets really close, but you get used to it after a while.
Yeah, and they get some. They have drones as well that get some of the shots too, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
because they don't make you. And I guess the question, because sometimes I see some of the camera angles and I look and I go, are they doing this twice to get different shots?
Yeah. Yeah.
They
So
so you do.
yeah, the rope climb I did 3 times.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's something that I mean, it makes sense from a production standpoint that they would ask you to do that so they can get multiple shots, but
Yeah.
that's got to wear you out.
Yeah, it was exhausting, absolutely exhausting. They took all the strength I had. And I think the only reason I was able to do it was because I was quite fit at that time, and I'd been in the gym doing pull-ups and a lot of upper body training. I
Mm,
think if I hadn't had that strength, there was no way I could do it, because it was so physically difficult to pull myself back up onto that building, even with Beth pulling me on the rope as well,
mm,
using all her strength, so my weight and the briefcase trying to get uphill onto the building, really difficult.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, and thankfully you had Beth. I was so glad I got to meet you both last year in London.
Yeah.
She is such a sweetheart. You were such a gracious person to put up with me in that evening. But I'm glad that this is kind of shining a different light for people who are watching this show, having a better understanding of what's really going on behind the scenes.
Mm, mm,
Because
yeah.
we don't. I think the average viewer is going to watch this and say, "Oh, they got it all in one shot." As to where someone maybe like myself, or obviously you were involved within it, I'm watching the show and I'm literally like rewinding, play, taking notes, rewinding, play, taking notes. So I mean, I'm really diving in and I'm catching those little camera differences going, wait a minute,
Yeah.
she or he already stepped that way or moved left, or wait, that car was behind this car just a
Yeah.
second ago. And I'm catching those little details because I am rewinding and playing and rewinding. So when you see those breaks in continuity, it leads you to believe, wait a minute, they really did put you guys through the ringer.
Yeah. I think before doing this show, I would have thought that too. It wouldn't have occurred to me that it was filmed more than once. But after getting some involvement in TV and now film, you see how things are made and how many different shots are needed. And yeah, there's always more than one. So, yeah, that also made the challenges hard, because there's a lot more filming than what you see. Way, way more.